Aquarius, pause for a second. Big money isn't late. It's already moving toward you. But here's what no one tells you: it can't reach you if you're still standing in the wrong places. January 2026 isn't asking you to work harder, manifest louder, or push faster. It's asking one quiet question. Where are you leaking your energy without realizing it? Some spaces don't look dangerous. They look familiar, comfortable, even normal. But they quietly pull you out of alignment, and money doesn't move through misalignment. If you've been feeling close yet something keeps missing, this message is for you. Comment below, "I'm ready to receive." Let your intention anchor here. And stay with me, because once you see the 3 places you need to avoid this month, you'll understand why everything is about to shift. You know what I've noticed about you, Aquarius? You don't rush toward things anymore. Not because you've lost desire, but because somewhere along the way, you learned the cost of moving too fast. There was a time when effort felt like the answer. When doing more, staying longer, showing up everywhere felt noble, responsible, almost necessary. But lately something in you has been slowing the rhythm. Not out of fear, out of knowing. It's subtle. It shows up in the way your body exhales the moment you step out of certain spaces. In how silence now feels nourishing instead of empty. In how your intuition speaks first, before logic has a chance to interrupt. This is the part most people miss. Readiness doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It arrives quietly as discernment. You're not being asked to attract anything right now. You're being asked to notice, to feel, to recognize the difference between a place that holds you and one that slowly pulls you apart without ever raising its voice. Some environments don't drain you through conflict. They do it through repetition, through unspoken expectations, through the weight of old versions of yourself still lingering in the air. And you, more than most, feel that weight. Aquarius carries memory differently, not just in thought, but in atmosphere, in tone, in the emotional temperature of a room. Have you ever walked into a place and felt your mind grow louder, even though nothing was happening? Or left a conversation feeling oddly tired, without knowing why? That's not coincidence. That's information. Big shifts don't always require dramatic change. Sometimes they ask for precision, for choosing where your presence belongs and where it no longer needs to be spent. This month isn't testing your strength. It's refining your awareness. Teaching you that stability isn't about holding everything together, but about knowing what no longer needs your energy to survive. There's a quiet confidence forming in you now. Not the kind that proves itself, the kind that trusts itself. And here's something I want you to consider gently. What if the reason things feel close, but not quite here, isn't delay but calibration? What if life isn't withholding, but adjusting the conditions so that when what's meant for you arrives, you can actually hold it without losing yourself in the process? You don't need to disappear. You don't need to withdraw from the world. You're simply learning the art of placement, of choosing rooms that don't ask you to shrink, conversations that don't require armor, moments that allow your nervous system to rest. This is how alignment begins, not with action, but with location. So let me ask you something, just between us. When you imagine the version of yourself who is steady, clear, and quietly prosperous, where does that version spend their time? Hold that image, because the spaces you choose next will either move you closer to it or keep you circling what you've already outgrown. And as we move forward together, you'll start to see something unmistakable. Once you step away from what drains you, what's meant for you doesn't struggle to find you. It recognizes you. All right, stay with me. Let this flow like a quiet late-night radio signal meant for only one Aquarius, not the crowd, just you. There is a strange stillness around you right now, not empty, not heavy, just unfamiliar. It can feel unsettling when movement slows, especially for a mind like yours that lives ahead of time. But this pause is not punishment, it is recalibration. January is not asking you to run faster. It is asking you to look around and notice what your soul has quietly outgrown. You may feel it when certain conversations drain you faster than they used to. When familiar places suddenly feel too loud, too tight, too small. When routines that once grounded you now feel like borrowed clothes that no longer fit. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is stuck. You are in between identities. Aquarius energy evolves in waves, not lines. And right now, you are standing at a threshold where the old environment cannot hold the version of you that is forming. This month is less about action and more about atmosphere, where you wake up. Who you let speak into your nervous system. What kind of silence you allow yourself to breathe in. Because environment shapes energy, and energy shapes outcomes. People often mistake this phase for being lost. But if you look closely, there is a pattern. Every time your life upgraded in the past, there was a moment like this, a quiet pulling away, a subtle discomfort. a sense that staying would cost you more than leaving. You are not blocked. You are transitioning. There is wisdom in noticing what no longer feels aligned without needing to judge it. Some relationships were perfect for the person you were becoming. They are not failures because they cannot walk with the person you are now. The same is true for spaces, habits, and even versions of ambition that once defined you. January asks one gentle question over and over again. What kind of environment does your next level require? Not someday. Not when everything is clear. Now. This is not about cutting everything off. It is about choosing where your energy rests at the end of the day. What you allow to shape your thoughts when no one is watching. What you normalize as acceptable. Aquarius, you are especially sensitive to subtle mismatches between who you are and where you are. Ignoring them drains you quietly. Listening to them changes everything. There is nothing dramatic about this moment. That is why many people miss it. But those who understand cause and effect know this is where trajectories shift. Before momentum returns, the foundation must feel right. So let me ask you something softly. When you imagine the version of yourself you are stepping into this year, would they still choose the same rooms, the same rhythms, the same emotional climate you are in now? Sit with that. Because what you choose to surround yourself with in this quiet window will decide how smoothly the next wave finds you. And the wave is already forming. Stay with me for a moment longer. Let the noise fade behind us. If you listen closely, you may notice something subtle happening inside your body lately. A tightening in the chest when the room gets too loud. A quiet fatigue that shows up after being around too many opinions, too many eyes, too many unspoken competitions. This is not sensitivity in the way the world likes to label it. This is perception. There are spaces that drain you not because they take your strength, but because they blur your inner signal. You know the kind of places I mean, where everyone is performing a version of themselves, where success is measured out loud, where comparison hangs in the air like static, even when no one says a word. You walk into those rooms and something in you immediately starts scanning, reading moods, absorbing tension, picking up on what is unsaid. Aquarius, you were never built to block energy. You were built to receive it, and that is why certain environments cost you more than they cost others. It is not weakness that makes you tired there, it is speed. Your system processes faster than the noise can settle, faster than the surface conversations can reveal what is real. In crowded spaces filled with proving and posturing, your clarity begins to thin, not all at once. Quietly, like fog rolling in without asking permission. You leave feeling scattered even if nothing bad happened. You may call it exhaustion. But what you actually lost was your inner compass. You do not lose energy there, you lose clarity. And clarity is the currency you need most right now. January is asking you to protect that clarity the way others protect their money. Because what you are carrying inside cannot afford to be diluted. This does not mean isolation, it means intention. Not every invitation is meant for you. Not every gathering deserves your presence. Not every loud space is aligned with the life you are quietly building. You may notice that after time alone, or in calm company, your thoughts line up again. Your intuition sharpens. Ideas arrive fully formed, not fragmented. That is your natural state. Aquarius energy thrives where there is room to breathe, room to observe, room to hear the subtler frequencies beneath the obvious ones. The world will always reward those who can stay loud, but it quietly depends on those who can stay clear, and you are one of those people. Let me ask you something gently. When you walk into a space lately, do you feel expanded or compressed? That answer matters more than you think, because the places you choose to spend time in right now are not neutral. They are shaping how easily you can hear your own guidance. As the month continues, you may find yourself naturally stepping back from certain scenes. Trust that instinct. It is not withdrawal. It is discernment. You are learning where your presence is nourished instead of consumed. And when clarity returns, momentum follows in ways that feel almost effortless. There is more to uncover about this. Because once you know where not to stand, it becomes much easier to recognize where your energy truly belongs. Stay right here with me. Let the silence settle a little deeper. There are places that feel comforting the moment you step into them. The chair knows your weight. The street remembers your footsteps. The walls hold stories you once needed in order to survive. And for a long time, those places were medicine. But something has shifted. Lately, when you return to certain familiar spaces, you may feel a strange pause inside. Not pain, not regret. Just a quiet sense that time is standing still while you are not. These are the places where your past still lives comfortably. The old cafe where you processed heartbreak. The familiar route you walk when you need to think. The environments that witnessed you being resilient, adaptable, strong enough to endure. They are not wrong. They are simply complete. And that is the part few people talk about. Familiar does not always mean aligned. Sometimes it means your nervous system knows how to operate there without effort. Sometimes it means you no longer have to grow to survive the space. Aquarius, you have already outgrown many of the rooms that once held you together. You are not abandoning your past by stepping away. You are honoring it. Because the version of you who needed those places was focused on staying afloat. The version of you now is quietly learning how to expand. When you sit too long in spaces tied to who you used to be, something subtle happens. Your imagination narrows. Your expectations lower. Your future begins to feel smaller than it actually is. Not because you lack vision, but because the environment keeps reminding you of an older storyline. Familiarity has a way of whispering, "Stay here, you already know how this goes." And that whisper can gently delay what is trying to arrive. January carries an invitation that feels tender rather than dramatic. It asks you to notice where your growth slows down simply because nothing challenges you anymore. You may feel a soft resistance now when you revisit certain routines. A sense that your energy dims just a little. That is not boredom. It is readiness for something more spacious. This is especially true for you, Aquarius. You evolve internally long before your outer world catches up. By the time change becomes obvious, you have already lived with it quietly for a while. The places tied to your past do not need to be rejected. They just do not need to be repeated out of habit. You are allowed to choose environments that reflect where you are going, not where you were last understood. Let me ask you something gently. When you think about the places you return to most often, do they mirror your future or preserve your survival? That distinction matters now. Because the more time you spend in spaces built for an earlier version of you, the longer it takes for the next chapter to fully recognize you. There is no rush here, only honesty. Some doors do not close loudly, they simply stop opening new possibilities. And as you become aware of that, you may feel a quiet pull toward unfamiliar ground. New streets, new rooms, new energy that does not yet know your story. That unfamiliarity is not loss, it is potential. Because once you stop anchoring yourself to places that remember who you were, you create room for environments that can finally meet who you are becoming. And that is where momentum begins to return, softly but unmistakably. Stay with me. Let your breath slow down just a little. There is another kind of place that is harder to recognize, because it does not have walls or addresses. You don't walk into it. You step into it emotionally. These are the spaces where you are always needed, but rarely restored. You know them well. Conversations where you listen more than you speak. Connections where you sense the weight before a single word is shared. Moments where you instinctively become the steady one, the translator, the anchor. You do this naturally, not because you are obligated, but because you can feel what others are carrying. Aquarius, your emotional intelligence is quiet and powerful. You read between sentences. You notice shifts in tone. You sense when someone is unraveling long before they admit it. And for many years, that made you invaluable. But something has changed inside you recently. You may have noticed a subtle fatigue after certain interactions. Not dramatic, just a lingering heaviness, as if your inner light had been dimmed a few notches. These are not bad people. These are not wrong relationships. They are simply spaces where your role has already been fulfilled. You are not selfish for stepping back. You are complete. There are emotional environments where your presence automatically stabilizes the room, where others unconsciously lean on your clarity, your calm, your insight. And while that once felt meaningful, it now feels expensive. Not because you no longer care, but because you are no longer meant to hold everyone together. You were never here to absorb what others refuse to process. You were never here to carry the emotional balance of the group indefinitely. That was a chapter. And it served its purpose. When you remain too long in spaces where you are always the supporter, your own restoration gets postponed. Your nervous system stays alert. Your creativity stays on pause. Your future waits quietly in the background. January is revealing something important to you, not through conflict but through awareness. You may notice yourself hesitating before certain calls, pausing before certain conversations, feeling less available than you used to be. That is not withdrawal. That is recalibration. You are learning the difference between connection and obligation. True connection restores both sides. Obligation only drains one. Let me ask you something gently. After spending time with someone lately, do you feel more like yourself or less? That answer holds more truth than any explanation. You are allowed to leave emotional spaces where your only function is to stabilize. You are allowed to choose environments where your energy can circulate, not disappear. This does not mean closing your heart. It means protecting its rhythm. Aquarius energy thrives when it is exchanged, not extracted. As you release roles you have outgrown, you create room for relationships that meet you at your current frequency. Where listening flows both ways. Where support is mutual. Where you are not defined by what you can hold for others. You are not abandoning anyone by choosing yourself. You are making space for a more honest version of connection. And as you do that, something subtle begins to shift again. Your energy becomes clearer. Your presence becomes lighter. Your path forward feels less burdened. There is still more unfolding here. Because once you stop carrying what was never yours to hold forever, you begin to recognize where your energy truly belongs next. Stay with me a little longer. There is something important settling into place now. You may have wondered why, despite your intelligence, your vision, your persistence, certain forms of abundance seem to hesitate around you. Not disappear, just hover at the edge. Close enough to sense, not close enough to land. This is not about worth, and it is not about effort. It is about capacity. Money, real money, does not move toward potential alone. It moves toward steadiness, toward systems that can hold it without strain. When your nervous system is constantly alert, even subtly, it sends a signal long before your mind does. A signal that says everything is already at maximum load. You can feel this in your body. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing. A mind that never fully powers down, even in moments of rest. This state does not come from laziness or lack of discipline. It comes from staying too long in spaces that require you to manage emotional weight that was never meant to be yours. Abundance is not drawn to chaos, even quiet chaos. It is drawn to bandwidth. Think of it this way. Every responsibility you hold takes up internal space. Every unresolved tension occupies attention. Every environment that keeps you bracing consumes energy before you even realize it. And when your internal bandwidth is stretched thin, there is no room left for expansion, only maintenance. This is why certain opportunities seem to arrive and then stall. Why growth feels possible in theory, but heavy in practice. Money is not just a reward. It is an amplifier. It amplifies whatever state you are already in. If your system is tense, money increases pressure. If your system is scattered, money creates more fragmentation. If your system is regulated, money becomes a tool instead of a threat. Aquarius, you are designed to think long-term, to innovate, to see beyond the immediate moment. But that future-focused mind requires a calm internal foundation to operate fully. When you remain in the wrong spaces, your nervous system stays in response mode. Always adjusting, always compensating, always preparing for what might go wrong. In that state, abundance does not feel safe, so it waits, not as punishment, but as intelligence. There is a deep wisdom in this timing. January is not asking you to chase more. It is asking you to release what keeps your inner world overcrowded. Because wealth requires emotional room, room to make clear decisions, room to respond instead of react, room to let resources flow without gripping them tightly. Let me ask you something honestly. If a significant increase arrived tomorrow, would your life feel more supported or more strained? Your answer tells the truth about readiness. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to regulation. The moment your system begins to feel safe again, something shifts. Your thinking sharpens. Your patience increases. Your confidence becomes quieter, but stronger. That is the state abundance recognizes. You do not have to force this. You only have to stop living in places that keep your body on guard. As you create space emotionally, capacity expands naturally. And when capacity expands, responsibility no longer feels heavy. It feels purposeful. This is where real momentum begins, not with striving, but with stability. And as that stability takes hold, you may start to sense something new approaching, not rushing, not demanding. Just waiting for the moment your inner world is ready to receive what it has already earned. Stay right here. Let the pace soften. After all this awareness, there is often a quiet fear that follows. If I step away from what drains me, what will be left? If I stop pushing, will everything go still? But this moment is not about emptiness. It is about choosing. There is a difference. When you release the wrong spaces, life does not collapse. It reorganizes. You may already be sensing it. A natural pull toward quieter mornings. A desire to wake without rushing into noise. A preference for fewer conversations that actually land, instead of many that skim the surface. This is not withdrawal from life. It is alignment with it. Aquarius, your mind works best when the world around you is not shouting. When your day begins without urgency, your intuition wakes up first. Ideas arrive gently, not forced. Decisions feel clean instead of complicated. There is a rhythm that suits you now. Slower, but not stagnant. Simpler, but not small. You may notice that when you reduce stimulation, something unexpected happens. Your creativity expands. Your confidence steadies. Your sense of direction becomes quieter, yet unmistakable. This is the paradox most people miss. Momentum does not always come from acceleration. Sometimes it comes from precision. When you choose fewer people, but the right ones, your energy stops leaking. When you choose spaces that feel calm rather than impressive, your nervous system begins to trust the future again. When your mornings are unhurried, your thoughts line up without resistance. This is where clarity turns into readiness. Money often follows this shift, not because you are chasing it, but because you are finally available for it. When your life has room, opportunities recognize where to land. I have seen this pattern many times. Abundance arrives after the pause, after the simplification, after the moment someone dares to stop proving and start listening. For you, slowing down is not laziness. It is strategy. You are learning to choose environments that amplify your signal instead of distorting it. To build days that support your future instead of draining your present. Let me ask you something softly. When was the last time you allowed yourself a morning that belonged only to you? That question matters more than it seems. Because in those quiet spaces, your next chapter begins to speak, not loudly, not urgently, but clearly. You are not meant to live surrounded by noise. You are meant to live surrounded by meaning. As you choose calm over chaos, simplicity over excess, depth over distraction, something inside you settles. And when that happens, life responds differently. Doors open without force. Connections feel mutual. Resources arrive without strain. This is not magic, it is alignment. And it begins with the courage to choose what nourishes you, even when the world celebrates speed. As you step into this slower, truer rhythm, notice how your body responds. Notice the ease, the steadiness, the quiet sense that you are finally walking at your own pace. There is one more layer waiting to reveal itself. Because once your life reflects your values instead of your survival, you begin to recognize something important. You were never meant to rush toward abundance. It was always meant to catch up to you. Stay here with me until the very end. This part is quiet, but it matters. January does not arrive with demands for bold moves or dramatic reinvention. It does not ask you to announce anything to the world. It asks for something far more subtle, a private decision, one you make when no one is watching. This month is not testing your ambition. It is listening to your honesty. You have already done the hard work. You have noticed where your energy thins, where your clarity fades, where your body stays alert when it should feel at ease. Now comes the softer moment, the one where you choose differently without explanation. For you, Aquarius, growth rarely looks loud. It looks like discernment, like stepping back without resentment, like choosing environments that reflect who you are becoming, not who you had to be. January is not asking you to act big. It is asking you to stand correctly. Because placement changes everything. You can work hard in the wrong room and feel invisible, or you can stand quietly in the right one and feel supported without effort. This is something life teaches slowly, often after years of pushing, after seasons of proving, after learning that force is not the same as power. You are entering a phase where alignment replaces urgency, where your presence carries weight without strain, where your intuition becomes the loudest voice in the room, even when you say nothing. And this is where things begin to shift, not because you chase opportunity, but because you stop blocking it with misalignment. There is a deep relief that comes with this realization, a sense that you no longer need to convince life of your readiness. You simply need to stop standing where your readiness cannot be seen. Let me ask you one last question. If no one needed anything from you tomorrow, where would you choose to be? That answer is not a fantasy. It is a direction. As you move through the rest of this month, notice the small choices. Where you sit, who you answer, what you give your attention to. These are not trivial decisions, they're signals. And life is paying attention. You do not need to announce your boundaries. You do not need to justify your pace. You do not need to explain your silence. The right environments will recognize you without effort. The right connections will feel mutual. The right opportunities will not require you to shrink or strain. This is not about luck. It is about coherence. When your inner world and your outer world finally match, things move naturally. And here is the truth I want you to carry with you. When you stop standing in the wrong rooms, the right doors do not need to knock. They open. Quietly, clearly, on time. January is not asking for more action. It is asking for one honest choice. To stand where your nervous system can soften, where your clarity can return, where your future can finally recognize you. Stay with that choice. You are not behind. You are precisely where a new chapter begins. Stay with me for just a little longer. This is not an ending. It is a settling. If something in you softened while listening, that was not imagination. That was recognition. Aquarius, this message was never meant to rush you. It was meant to meet you exactly where you are standing right now, in between what you have released and what has not yet arrived. You did not miss your moment. You prepared for it quietly. Every choice to step back, every space you outgrew, every time you honored your nervous system instead of overriding it. All of that mattered more than it looked at the time. Healing does not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels like relief you did not know you were carrying. If this message found you tonight, or in the quiet of your morning, take that as a sign of alignment, not coincidence. There is nothing you need to force next. Only one thing to trust, that your pace is not too slow, your sensitivity is not a weakness, and your awareness is not accidental. You are part of a community of Aquarius souls who are learning the same lesson right now. To choose clarity over chaos, to choose truth over habit, to choose environments that allow the future to breathe. If a sentence stayed with you, if a moment felt like it was spoken only to you, I invite you to share it in the comments. Tell me what resonated. Tell me where you felt seen. And if you would like to continue this journey together, subscribe and stay close. There are more messages coming, quieter ones, deeper ones, the kind that arrive when you are finally ready to hear them. Until the next time, be gentle with your energy, protect your clarity, and trust yourself enough to stand where you belong. The journey is not over. It is just beginning.